The latest developments now on the deadly plane crash at Bradley International Airport. The National Transportation Safety Board is releasing their preliminary findings.
7 people were killed, 7 others injured when a vintage B-17 crashed into a de-icing facility 2 weeks ago. And while some details of that crash are more clear, there's still a lot of gray areas. Western Mass News reporter Audrey Russo joins us live from Bradley with more on this preliminary report. Audrey?
It's often with these preliminary crash and accident reports from the NTSB that people are left with more questions than answers. And that phrase certainly applies to the B-17 crash that happened here at Bradley. Now, I spoke with an FAA vintage aircraft inspector and pilot to try to get answers to some of those questions left behind. Just minutes into flight, and the pilots of the doomed 909 were already signaling that they needed to land as soon as possible. This according to the NTSB's preliminary report on the deadly B-17 crash at Bradley International Airport. In it, the pilot was said to have communicated to air traffic control that the plane had a rough mag on the number 4 engine.
I heard people say that they heard the number 4 engine backfire, and so that would cause that noise.
Western Mass News speaking with Alan Maxwell over the phone. The FAA vintage aircraft inspector and pilot explains that each of the plane's 4 engines has 2 magnetos, but says one faulty one can still give an engine trouble.
Whichever mag was bad was causing the airplane to miss a little bit and backfire.
Still, Maxwell said that plane could theoretically have half its engines out and still remain airborne.
You should be able to fly on 2.
In the report, the air traffic controllers cleared runway 6 so the vintage plane could land. The pilot replied that they were getting there. But it was the last communication anyone outside the plane would have with the pilots. The report says the plane then struck some approach lights, then contacted the ground about 500 feet prior to the runway before reaching runway 6.
It's had a lot of training. I don't know what happened in the cockpit.
The NTSB investigation shows the plane was properly fueled and that the fuel itself was absent of debris or water. The report also outlining that 909 underwent an annual inspection in January. At that time, engine 4 hadn't undergone a major overhaul in 838 hours. However, the plane had been inspected again at its 100-hour point on September 23rd. The NTSB reiterating to me today that this is only a preliminary report. Their official cause of the crash won't be out for another 12 to 18 months. Now, coming up on Western Mass News at 6, we'll have an update, a condition update on the local survivors of the crash. We'll have an update from the hospital, and we'll also hear from a small network forming around the families who lost a loved one in the crash. Reporting live at Windsor Locks, Audrey Russo for Western Mass News.
Audrey, thank you for that live report. And for a look at the NTSB's complete preliminary report, make sure to have our Western Mass News app. You can get it by visiting your app store or texting Western Mass News, all one word, to 23765.